Thank you, Paranita ji. Welcome everybody. Wow, last day, huh? Ninth day, time flies. Wonderful. So welcome everybody. We're back. This is our third day on the book, A Thousand Seeds of Joy. So hope this Navratri has been beautiful. What an unfolding of joy and love. Um, Let me just make sure there's no disturbance here. Make sure some apps are not working, which we don't need. Okay.
And looks like it's a sunny day for you, sir.
Yes, it is beautiful here. It is, love the light here. Now we are getting into fall here and it starts getting a bit cold. So, but it's beautiful, lovely season. Fall season is one of my favorites. Okay, so welcome everybody. Let's review where we have been. So we began the discussion 2 days ago with Thousand Seeds of Joy, and we focused the first day on the topic emptiness is fullness, and we did a meditation with that. We talked about some wisdom, how you can join different levels of consciousness. So you have the mind, which is the most dense, then the body, which is less dense, then you have your soul, which is almost no density, and then you have your higher self, which is zero density. So these are the levels, and the denser consciousness always surrenders to the lighter consciousness. So the mind will surrender to the body will surrender to the soul by just feeling the soul feelings, rainbow light all over the body, all of this is coming, all of this wisdom. And then the soul merges with the source, which is your higher self. And all of this can happen now with this age we're coming in, all can join with each other. So you can even dissolve your mind directly into emptiness. Welcome the thoughts, welcome the emotions, and find the emptiness. Ask a question, what it is to be angry. Anger can be good sometimes. But what it is to have an empty anger. Anger rises, you know why it is there, and drop all the beliefs, thoughts, attachments, concepts about judgments, just empty out the anger, but feel it in your body. Less mind, more body. That's emptying out the anger. Feel the anger in the body, less mental projection. So you can do that. You can do this emptiness technique directly with the mind. You can invite emptiness in the soul feelings. If you know love, what is it to really love from the heart? Empty out the mind more. Let the conditioning go. Make it even more unconditional. What is that? Even divine beings. You pray to Lakshmi ji. What is it to empty out all concepts that you know about Lakshmi ji, about Saraswati ji? Because these concepts have been given to us, these beliefs have been given to us, and we must empty out all of this. So this was emptiness is fullness, first day. Second day was about no judgments, how to move beyond a judgmental mind. Because we're always judging. Consciously, unconsciously, we're judging. And we did a meditation, and we even talked about how to not judge when we are meditating. What is it to meditate without any ideas of what is meditation? No judgment, moving beyond judgment. We even talked about Ramayana. how it was Ram and Ravan were Sita's soulmates, one in the positive aspect, one in the negative aspect, but both needed, both creating, both allowing the contrast to play out so that both could get enlightened. All three of them were enlightened. So this is like, the lotus, there's a saying, listen to this deeply. Deeper the mud, bigger the lotus. I'll say it again. Deeper the mud, bigger the lotus. So people who are stuck in their mind, in the mud of their mind, maybe their soul has chosen to really fall deep, like Raman did. So people in your life who just don't change, who are deep in that mud of the mind, filled with emotions, with ego, like Ravan. And you get sad and you lose hope. When will they change? Just look at it another way. Maybe their soul is not ready yet. It wants to dig the mud deeper so that when the eventual flowering will happen and they'll blossom, they'll be even greater Buddhas. Think about this. We fall, we suffer, but that creates the contrast, the opposite, for us to rise. So you can't instantly judge anybody's journey. If they are turning back from contrast and rising into enlightenment, and you are on their path, and you give them some wisdom, and they change, great. Wonderful. But you're trying to change somebody and they don't change. This happens a lot in marriages, in families, and they don't change. Meditate, ask your body, is your path to change them? We can never change anybody. We can only change ourselves. But just that hope that things will change. Maybe they just want to grow, they go deeper into the mud. More karma, they want to accumulate. So that the day they rise, there'll be even bigger lotuses. So allow them that freedom. It's their right. Everybody's soul has a right. This is why some of the best healers, they will always ask for permission. Even goddesses, when they heal us, they always ask for permission. Goddesses ask for permission. This is my personal experience. They will ask you, are you willing to let this go, this disease go? Sometimes we'll have energies that will come into us, negative energies. And even that we can be attached to, and maybe it's helping us play the drama. Even those energies, we have to ask the person holding the energies, are you giving the permission to release these energies? Because the soul may have chosen to go through a deeper journey and we are cutting it short. So this is where the no judgment on the second day really, really comes in, that all you can do, you have decided to transform, and the universe is full of, permissions and non-judgment. Everybody has a path. You have to respect their path, and you have to make boundaries to protect yourself. So these were the first 2 days. Now, today, the topic is how to transform with joy, how to find seeds of joy in your life in different ways. How do you find that? And we'll look at the lives of Lakshmi ji in her incarnations, three incarnations in Mahabharata and one in with Gautam Buddha, which is in Buddhism as Yashodhara. So let's hope we can finish all of that today. Okay. So let's begin with the next incarnation of Lakshmi ji after Sita. And this is when she comes as Radha. Now, Radha is not really mentioned in anywhere in Mahabharata. If you look at the original Mahabharata, nowhere you'll find mention of Radha. Radha comes in after 1000 AD. Mahabharata was written in the BC times. So, how does this happen? This is also a sign of a live spirituality where saints and sages are receiving messages. Puranas are all about that, where stories have come. In the ancient Veda time, the devas like Indra, Vayu, they were very important. Indra was the main god, And about 2000 years ago, or little more than that, things changed. It's a live spirituality, right? So even gods are evolving. So Vishnu and Shiva suddenly assume a lot of importance in all of the scriptures that begin after the Vedic period is getting into Vedanta, with the Saraswati's, incident message that happened with Saraswati. And from Vedanta, then Vishnu and Shiva, they grow in importance. So it's a live religion, and so what are the messages we are getting about Radha, which came in, after 1000 AD, did not come in the time Mahabharata was written. And then more messages which are coming in different books, including our book, 1,000 Seeds of Joy, from Lakshmi ji about what really happened. So let's start with Radha. Then we'll go into Draupadi. Draupadi has one of the most interesting lives that you can never imagine. 5 husbands and war and Krishna. What a life, right? We will not discuss so much about Rukmini, which is not mentioned. She was definitely one of the 3 incarnations around the time of Mahabharata. She had a blissful life with Krishna. There's not so much discussion, so we won't cover that so much. Then we'll get into Yashodhara. So these 3 incarnations of Lakshmi. So let's begin with Radha. So what do we learn about Radha from Lakshmi ji in this book? What is so unique? What is so different, right? So one thing that I was struck by is that this was not a very teenage type romance, which is what it is projected. Lakshmi ji says that she was a bit older when she met Krishna, and she had come into her own fullness. So she had had a lot of enlightenments already. And they had a very beautiful friendship. She says, I could have married him. Those were matriarchal times. Men had more than one wife. Even wife had more than one husband, like Draupadi did. It was not frowned upon, it was accepted, Matriarchal times allow more freedom. In patriarchal times, there'd be a lot of contention if these things are allowed, But in matriarchal times, it's all about love. Love doesn't always make rules. So she could have married him, but she chose not to. It was her free will. She says in the book, she liked to come and go as she pleased. And it was not uh, that she had to marry him. And she was independent, Radha. And they both were so connected to the stars that many times they could not be together. So they would communicate using the stars. Radha would send some messages through the stars, which would reflect back to Krishna, and Krishna would send back to Radha. So they were deeply in this communion. They had the capacity to take care of the world, both of them. So even Radha, with her deep meditations, with her dances, with just the way of her being, she would heal the earth. And so would he. She was more surrendered into nature. He was a little busy with the kingdom and Pandavas and the role. He had a big assignment. So Krishna's assignment was to basically bring in the Kali Yuga. He was helping in transition. We were going from Dwapar Yuga to Kali Yuga. So you have to understand this whole Mahabharata, which is a very confusing epic for many people. Why certain things happened. And we'll go into that, but let me just finish with Radha first. So Radha and Krishna had a very mutually empowering relationship. Lakshmiji even says that I would be like the battery for him that would energize him. So I asked her, what do you mean? Wasn't he a complete enlightened person? That why would he need any energizing? So Lakshmiji would say, that's true. It's not that only I energized him. Even taking care of the poor people or taking care of the earth would energize him. So what she meant in that was, we can have a very peaceful state where we're just meditating, and we can have a slightly more energized state where we are, loving the world and taking care of people. So in that way, just like Krishna would be energized by taking care of, those who were around him, he would be very energized in the presence of Radha, just, full of love. And they had a very close, intimate relationship. But it was not intimate in the sense the world has taken it. They did not have a physical union, even though they connected physically. They danced together. They, spent time together. But it was a beautiful love relationship, but not the way the world is interpreted. So they did not really have a sexual relationship. It was more just deep love and intimacy. There is physical intimacy. There is emotional intimacy. There is just that pureness of love, which she calls Vajra love. So what is Vajra love? Different kinds of love. There is romantic love, which is even more emotions. There is just simple emotional love, like mother for her child. There is, unconditional love for the world. Love is just heart responding in different ways. Vajra love is something where all loves combine. So you cannot really distinguish this is only spiritual love. It is basically, imagine all levels of consciousness coming together. So Vajra love has it's Vajra means diamond. It comes from the word comes from you know uh, it's a Sanskrit word, but it comes even it was taken in Buddhism, and so diamond like love, So it has the shine of the higher self. It has infinite soul feelings. So it'll be always forgiving. It'll be always ever compassionate. It'll always have the patience, like deep patience. It'll have, you know, compassion. It'll have great joy. All of the soul qualities are there. And then it also has a little bit of the emotional mind. You're fully in it. And there is a physical aspect to it also. They would dance together, Radha and Krishna. So just even the touch, hands touching, at those levels of enlightenments could be like a full experience. It could be very intense, just by just by you dancing with somebody, there could be like an amazing intensity in that. So one doesn't really need to then be like, two romantic lovers, just by dancing like that, it can be have a very tantric intensity. So they had this very high frequency love. And they were, together in that way. And so, she was independent. She made her decisions. She had her viewpoints. Sometimes they would have discussions, and he really admired her. At the end of the day, he was Vishnu's incarnation. She was Lakshmiji's incarnation. So they were definitely on each other's path. So that is Radha's story. Now and this story, as I said, came into the scriptures 1,000 years ago. This is not originally mentioned in Mahabharata, but that's okay. Hinduism is a live religion, so inspiration can come anytime. Now let's go to Mahabharata and the role of Draupadi in it. Draupadi, she's fire. Draupadi, she's love, and she's also an incarnation of Lakshmiji. How could same goddess incarnate in three women at the same time, similar times? Well, Lakshmiji says it can happen. In fact, some enlightened, some deeply enlightened masters would say it happens a lot. For example, some people say Vishnu right now in the universe has 256 incarnations. Not all of them are on earth. So divine beings, when you attain the Dharmakaya state where you have fully become the source, only this compassion goes out to heal the suffering of the world. So you have high heavens, the Sambhogakaya realms, Dharmakaya is the source, ultimate emptiness, fullness. From that, you have many levels of high heavens, many high dimensions. So these emanations will go out of these divine beings. And then the Nirmankaya, these emanations, these are not emanations, these are incarnations. So Vishnu might have 256, So this is not out of the realm of possibility that she chose to come as three women. So as Draupadi, she was Krishna's devotee. As Rukmani, she was his wife, And so devotee was more maiden form, wife is more matron. You have the maiden, matron, and crone. Crone is the wise woman. So as Radha, she was crone as Radha. So crone simply not meaning an old woman, crone meaning wise one. So as Draupadi, she is his devotee. So how does she play out that? Her first three chakras were open. So you can say she was enlightened in the sense of enlightened. And she was moving to the heart chakra, similar journey like many have had. So sometimes her heart would be very open. And other times she would get into the fierceness, the there was that emotional reality also. But mostly she would never get too emotional, but there was that fierceness, and mostly surrendered to love, compassion. So in this whole epic, if you try to understand Mahabharata, Krishna tells Arjuna that you must fight. Pandav brothers had just arrived from in their first incarnation. They'd just been birthed from their, God. You can say their fathers were these gods, and they're just birthed in the first incarnation. When you come in your first incarnation and you are coming from a very high realm, you're filled with love and joy and compassion, all of that. So initially, when Pandavas and Kauravas are interacting, they don't see any point in fighting because they come from such high spiritual realm. But this is where there's a concept of soul cycle that is introduced by Lakshmi ji. This will help you understand this confusing epic Mahabharata sometimes. So, because Mahabharata can be used and abused. Some people can simply get in their ego and say, this is my duty to fight, and they'll fight, So all these misconceptions go around. The fight is never for the ego, but most people, 99% of them, when they are fighting, there's an ego element there. So it is confusing epic. So to remove the confusion, you have to understand soul cycle. Soul cycle is the higher self birthing the soul to increase the contrast so that the higher self is expanding. Soul coming into bodies, creating karma, and that karma leading to more contrast, pain, suffering. All that is the opposite that is created for the higher self, expanding and contrast, both of them support each other. So let's say soul has come, first life, and Pandavas are now supposed to go into Kali Yuga. That's true. On earth right now, there might be Pandav brothers because they were supposed to fall. That's what Krishna came to launch, from Dwapar Yuga to Kali Yuga. And these were the brave souls, Pandavas who basically said, we will help you with this. So they are in their first life, obviously, filled with love and all of that. So they have an attachment to all of that. They don't want to fall because that's where they've come from, pureness, essence. But Krishna already knows their soul paths in the soul cycle. They have to fall and then they'll rise again. But because they're in their first life, there's a little attachment to not let that go. So they don't want to fight. Kauravas, on the other hand, had descended. They were in the middle of their soul cycle. So they'd already accumulated karma from previous lives. And because of that karma, they already understood hate and jealousy and anger. They were very familiar with these energies and they were deep into them and they were creating even more karma because they are in the middle of the soul cycle. Last part is the ending of the soul cycle. And soul cycle can be, different lengths. For some people, it can be 60, 70 lives. For some people, 100 lives. There could be a range of, through all the four yugas, Satyuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar, Kali Yuga. So the ending of soul cycle, which most people are in right now in this Kali Yuga, is the last part. So in the beginning, you're too attached to all the soul feelings. You don't want to let them go. But Krishna is advising Pandavas to fight. In the middle of the soul cycle, like Kauravas, you are very naturally into all the lies and deceit and karma and jealousies and all the emotions and everything that goes with it. So Duryodhan is very much where he needs to be. And then there is a last one in Mahabharata, the sixth brother of Pandavas. His name is Karna. Karna is in his last incarnation. So it's an interesting mix. 5 Pandav brothers in first incarnation, Kauravas in the middle of their soul cycle, and Karna in his last incarnation. Karna's soul path. So beautiful thing about this book is Lakshmi ji talks about soul paths. And soul has paths, but they can vary depending on our free will. We can change this path, we can take that path. So there's some variation that can happen, That's where free will comes in. So what happens is a mix of free will and destiny. So some of you might be like, what does this mean? Either you have free will or you have destiny. How can both be true? Think of a highway. Your destiny is the highway. You've taken the highway. Okay? Think of free will as all the exits that come. Okay? So you come to the highway, you're going straight, exit comes, and it's a one-way highway. You're not coming back on the highway. So your free will decides to take an exit, you take an exit, and you're spending some time there. And there are local roads also, and you can get back on highway. But suppose you're on a highway, and the next exit is after 40 kilometers. Now the destiny will play. There's no turning back, there's no exits. You made your choice. There was an exit available. You didn't take that. You went straight. You have to be on the highway. That's the destiny part. So there are times when there are no choices. You acted in a certain way, and now there is destiny. Let us say somebody gets very angry about some financial mismanagement with somebody. Some issue happened, somebody stole somebody's wealth, and they go and kill that person. They had a choice. They could have forgiven that. They could have gone to courts. They could have killed him. They had 3-4 choices. They chose the worst one, Now you took an exit, you got on another highway. Now you're on that highway. That's destiny. Killing somebody is a big thing. So now destiny will play. Your life will unfold in a certain way. Now you cannot expect to not be in jail and not, those things will happen. Karma will play out. So this is the mix. So Karna had free will. Krishna was inviting him again and again. Come back on this side of the war, help us. And he kept refusing. Krishna reached out to him many times. And every time he refused because he felt loyalty to Duryodhan. Because Duryodhan had made him the king of Anga, and then he had bestowed so much wealth on him. And Karna had, betrayals, He was given up by Kunti when he was born, and so Draupadi had rejected him in the Swayamvar. So he was carrying all these betrayals. So he became really loyal to Duryodhan. But he had a soul path. Karna name comes from ears, He had big ears and he used to wear big earrings also. And he was supposed to listen from those ears. That was the sign. Even in some religions like Jainism, they'll show big ears, because you're supposed to listen to your higher self. Listening is a way to meditate. So Karna is supposed to listen to his higher self on the day when Draupadi is going through her Chirharan. This is the day when Dushasan will bring her, Pandavas would, lose in that gamble, and they would gamble away even Draupadi. And she comes in front of hundreds of men. All the Kauravas are there, all the 100 Kaurava brothers, Pandavas are there. And the whole stage is set. The main hero who could have been in this stage on that day is Karna. This is new information. It came from Lakshmi ji. Draupadi actually, her true love, which she confided even to Pandav brothers, I think in the 13th year or one of those years, this is there in Mahabharata, she confided to the 5 Pandavas that my true love was Karna. So then what happened? In Swayamvar, why did she reject him? Why did she say, the son of Shudra cannot participate in this? And I asked this to Lakshmi ji. So Lakshmi ji says what really happened was Draupadi was always in devotion to Krishna and to her higher self. So any of these big decisions on the day of Swayamvar when Karna was entering, she just got a very strong message from the higher self to say what she said, even though she was most attracted to Karna. As he walked in, she immediately saw that he had the attributes, the strengths of each of the 5 Pandav brothers. She could immediately see it. Everybody could see it. So he was, he spoke more truth. He was more generous. He was stronger than Bhima, all the abilities, and he was more handsome than Nukula. And so all of these characteristics of all 5 Pandavas were, more enhanced to them. So it was obvious. So she just loved the presence of him, but she just spoke the words. So Karna was supposed to, of course, then he was not allowed to participate in Swayamvar. So Arjuna, won Draupadi. And then, the story, then 5 Pandava brothers got married because Kunti asked, Arjun to share whatever he had received with all the brothers. So she's married to 5 of them. And she was surrendered to her higher self. That's what came, that's what happened. Now, on that day, when she is facing all these men who are trying to disrobe her, that's the day Karan initially felt this little emotional, tug, like what's happening. But then he immediately remembered what Draupadi had done to him in Swayamvar. So he also got with them, with the Kauravas. And he also basically, said some things and his ego came in. This was one of the rare times when his ego came in. Otherwise, he was a great ruler. He was very compassionate, very amazing person. But just in that instance, his ego came Now, Lakshmiji said this: if in that moment he had stood up for Draupadi, he had listened to his higher self from his big ears, there was a message coming, Krishna was there, other divine beings were there. Suppose he had stood up to Duryodhana and Dushasana and he basically said, enough is enough. You cannot be disrobing Draupadi in this public, courthouse. Cannot be doing this. If he had done that, Duryodhana and him would have had a falling out immediately. And Duryodhana would have taken back everything. As he would do that, Karna would feel suddenly he's losing everything. The deep fear and insecurity in his root chakra would be exposed. The emotional attachment that happened with Draupadi would be exposed more because his ego would not be hiding it. And his third chakra ego would melt because he's protecting Draupadi, the one who needed the protection. As this would happen, what the book says, Karna would just have these three chakras open. And in that instance, and even right now I can feel the chills in my body, in that instant he would get enlightened. As he is speaking those words, he would get enlightened. We talked yesterday about how Ram and Ravan got enlightened as he shot the last arrow with amazing compassion that liberated Ravan and he got enlightened. So sometimes these moments are very key. That day was the most important day for Karn's life. It would have enlightened him. This was an alternative path, a parallel universe could have unfolded. This is where free will comes in. But Karn not only did not fight with Pandavas, even after that he got chances. Krishna told him to come. Right till the day he died, he did not surrender to Krishna. Only when he was dying, the day he was dying, that's when he surrendered to Krishna and he got enlightened. He was supposed to get enlightened. It can happen at the last minute also. But he could have had an alternative life where he got enlightened and then instantly would have realized Pandavas are his brothers in his enlightenment. And at that moment, Draupadi, he would have been enlightened, so lesson learned. So at some point, Draupadi would have then confided to Pandavas that she does want to marry him. She's married to 5 of them. So she would marry him, and then her relations would be mostly with him, even though she would love the Pandav brothers, but her physical relations would be mostly only with Karna. And Pandavas had other wives, so that wouldn't matter. But that's how the whole Mahabharata would have gone. So what are the lessons here? One, we cannot judge anybody's path. Duryodhan was on his soul path. How? Because he was in the middle of soul cycle. That's what you do in the middle of soul cycle. You are blind by your ego. Pandavas had some difficulty getting on their soul path because they didn't want to fall. Krishna would tell them to fight, fight, fight. They had to fall. That was their duty. Your duty is to your soul. Ultimately, your duty is to your soul. This is what is not understood by many, because many will misunderstand Mahabharata to use it for their advantage. They're in a business and they're fighting with another competitor and they'll use all kinds of means to win the war. But what if their soul path is not to fight? The soul path is to evolve now. Then that becomes your duty. So when Buddha doesn't fight or Mahavir doesn't fight, when they're attacked, they're also being true to their duty. When Pandavas are told to fight, they're also being true to their duty. How do you know? Because this is where you have to meditate and you have to know what is my soul path. And your higher self, your soul will tell you. In that silence of the breath, when you meditate, you will find your purpose, you'll find your soul path. Your mind is the least instructive. Your body also can tell you. Put your hands on your heart. What is my soul path? Go deep in meditation. What is my soul path? Staying true to the soul path is your duty. That is, when you understand it like that, then there's no longer confusing. Everybody was, being dutiful. Now, if everybody was being dutiful, then how come when somebody's not on their soul path? I asked this to Lakshmiji, everybody was on their soul path. So what she said was, initially when we are falling from soul, we've just come from the soul realm, magnificence and love and joy. We come to this physical dense reality. We don't want to engage in anger and competition. We just want to be loved. We just want to be forgiving. And that's what Pandavas were trying. But they had to fall. Krishna knew their soul path, so he encouraged them to fight, to stay true to their soul path. So initially, when you're coming, there's a difficulty. The ego is a spiritual ego. It gets attached to being good, being loving, which is supposed to fall. So Krishna helped them, and Draupadi was enlightened with at least the first enlightenment. She helped them. She got messages from Krishna. She also helped them. In the middle, there's no need for any help because in the middle, people don't even listen. They're in their ego. So Kauravas would not even listen. If Krishna had even spoken to Kauravas, they wouldn't have listened. So there's no issue. At the end of the journey, which most of us are right now, in Kali Yuga, we are going back to our higher self. We've fallen, now we are rising. At the end of our journey, there's too much attachment of the ego to the materialism. Just like in the beginning, you're too attached to the soul, you don't want to fall. At the end, you're too attached to the material realm. Everything, a big car, a nice house, fashion, beauty, looks, all external things, they drive us. And it's hard to let go. A lot of people find that hard to let go at this time when they have to evolve into spirituality. So for most people, the duty right now would be to turn inward. This is a message even to the millennials, turn inward, because that's where your soul wants to go now. Because the inner richness is so much greater than any palace or any great car or anything you can find. The inner richness is the whole universe is there. So this is the way Lakshmiji explains Gita, which I found took away all my confusions. And let me look at the time. Okay, so yeah, we have good. So we will take now the rest of it with some questions later. But let me spend the last 10 minutes on Yashodhara, the next incarnation of Lakshmi and Vishnu is in Buddhism. Is that okay, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It's okay. But just, sir, there is some background music coming in from your laptop, I think. Not sure.
No, it's not music. For some reason, this time when we do these lectures is when the lawn mowers outside, all the windows are closed. That's
Okay.
when they mow the lawns. And today must be I don't know why they're here today. So yeah, it's not music. It's not musical, right?
Oh, okay. I mean, in between, it just sounds like Om. So I wasn't sure if it was noise or it was music or so. I wasn't sure. So
I'm
yeah.
doing my best to transform and transmute the lawnmower into Om. I'm doing my best. That's a joke.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
Yes, that unfortunately that may just continue, but hopefully you can hear me.
Yes, sir. It's clear. Yeah.
Okay, so going to Buddhism, next incarnation, now wisdom has to increase on earth because we're very close to Kali Yuga. So Mahabharata and all this is Ramayana happened in Treta Yuga, and Mahabharat at the end of Dwapar Yuga, beginning of Kali Yuga. And now Buddhism is happening as we've begun in Kali Yuga, and Buddha has come to prepare humanity. We need knowledge, more knowledge, So Buddhism grew in stages. First came Theravada Buddhism, which is what we're going to talk about today. And then Mahayana after 500 years with Buddhas like Avalokiteshvara, Manjushri, two big Buddhas of Mahayana Buddhism. And then third path, Vajrayana Buddhism, which is the big guru there was Guru Rinpoche, Padmasambhava. And Lakshmi and Saraswati, and even Parvatiji, interestingly, they're coming in Buddhism. So just a little background, because some of this information is also there. So Manjushri had two wives. One was Lakshmi, one was Saraswati. Padmasambhava had two consorts, the big ones. He had five actually, but two were the big ones. And consorts are like spiritual partners, like Radha would be to Krishna. But in Vajrayana Buddhism, it's even more. So Padmasambhava had Mandarva, who was Lakshmi, just came recently. And Yeshe is very well known, was Saraswati. This is very well known in Buddhist scriptures also. So think of this. Goddesses in Hinduism that you think of Hinduism, Lakshmi and Saraswati, they're incarnating in Buddhism. Yeshe wrote a lot of scriptures of Vajrayana Buddhism, which were to be discovered later. And Lakshmi ji comes with Gautam Buddha, as Yashodhara. So this Buddhism is not separate from Hinduism. It's all the Hindu gods, goddesses. Vishnu ji is coming again and again. Vishnu comes as Avalokiteshvara. He comes as Padmasambhava. And even Kuan Yin, who is on we have a Devi teacher for Kuan Yin. We have a workshop for Kuan Yin. Happens next year. It'll happen in month of February, I believe. Kuan Yin is just a feminine representation of Avalokiteshvara. So Kuan Yin is Vishnu, because Avalokiteshvara is Vishnu. Just the feminine side of Vishnu. Vishnu likes to play the feminine. He's Mohini with Shiva, in one of the Puranas. So when we are that high divine beings, we go beyond masculine, feminine. We can come as we want. So this is just a little background on how Hindu goddesses and gods, and even including even Parvati ji, she also, there's a story in Thousand Seeds of Joy where Parvati ji came as an enlightened Buddha who got completely enlightened by the time he was 30 years old as a male. And for I don't know how many years, I forget now, for about 40 years, that Buddha basically got messages, was Parvati ji, getting messages from Shiva and just writing down nadis. Have you heard of Nadi Shastra? And so one of the nadis was my own nadi, which opened, and Parvati ji had written it, and many nadis she had written, thousands and tens of thousands. And many of you might have opened your nadis. It might have been written by Parvati ji in that incarnation in Buddhism in a place that is now close to somewhere in Pakistan at the time, Uddayana or some place like that. So this is like a grand spiritual movement that these Vedic gods and goddesses are leading now through Buddhism. And of course, continues in Hinduism also. Adi Shankara, Lord Shiva's incarnation, comes in India. And all of India is at that time Buddhist. When Adi Shankara comes, Shankaracharya comes, all of India has become Buddhist. And India had the tradition of not changing religion by force like they do in they've done in Abrahamic religions. In India, you debate. And Adi Shankara would debate the greatest Buddhist scholars all over India. And he was maybe very skilled. Sometimes you can even win the debates by skill of speaking. And even though greatest Buddhist scholars were there, he defeated all of them in India. And all of India changed back to Hinduism. And he brought in some concepts which people even feel are Buddhist concepts, like Shunya, to Hinduism. And the whole lineage started with Adi Shankara and all the way to Mahavatar Babaji and, Paramahansa Yogananda and all of that. So Buddhism and Hinduism are very much together, even though both religions have learned from each other. And Hindu tantras have been joined in Vajrayana Buddhism as tantras. And Shankaracharya's Shunya concept comes from Buddhism also. And the Hindu goddesses are incarnating in Buddhism. So these are not two different streams. That's what I'm trying to say. It's one spirituality. We just call it Buddhism, Hinduism. It is just one spirituality. So let's go into Yashodhara's life. She incarnates, and we'd hear about Buddha all the time, and Yashodhara is the wife and son that were left behind, and he got enlightened, and she was left behind, and then he came back, and he asked, at some point, she wanted to join the Sangha. He declined. Then later on, he agreed. And then she led her the Sangha. So it's almost like it's a very patriarchal vision of what happened. Then Lakshmiji is explaining what really happened. Okay, so let's listen to that for another 3-4 minutes. Maybe we'll end at 1:30, 1:35, and then we'll take questions. So Yashodhara, what happened? In their marriage, when they were married, Buddha was, struggling a lot because the astrologer, when he was born, he had told Buddha's father was informed that the son of yours will either become a great saint or a great king. Obviously, the father was interested in him becoming a great king. That fear went deep into the father. Deep. So when he would speak to Buddha as a young child, that fear was there. And Buddha is, Lord Vishnu's incarnation. So even as a child, very aware, instantly absorbed all that fear. When children are raised with fear, when parents have that fear about them not having a good career, this would be similar. His career was to become a king, and he's not agreeing to that career, So father is afraid, what will happen to my son. Same fear we have today also. Children can absorb that energy. When they absorb that energy, children are born with a great gift of open higher chakras. When you have a 2-year-old, you don't know what that 2-year-old is observing. That 2-year-old is in between realms sometimes, especially when there's a 3-month-old. They're in the spiritual realms and the earthly realm, and they're looking at energies, higher chakras are open. That's why children can recognize a good person or a bad person. And mothers and fathers, when a child does not like somebody's energy, they should respect that because the child is observing a lot more than the parents are. So their open chakras are open, their higher chakras are open. So, but these chakras which are open, they can also take in negativity. It's very important for the mother to protect the child at that time. It's very important when children are very young, don't take them to places which have negativity, too much crowds and all that. Be protective. Keep them in divine environments, Jesus even grew up in a church. Buddha so open, instantly all that fear, he's taking it in and almost makes him a depressed child in his teen years, very moody, inverted, introverted, and always looking inside, and so he's growing up like that, and always asking questions about, you know, serious questions, like a philosopher. And then he happens to take 2, 3 trips outside the palace. The father had protected him from all of the sickness and old age, and made him grow up in luxuries of a prince. Anything that he wanted was made available to him. He was not exposed to suffering. But was he not? The main element of suffering was right in front of Gautama always. That was his father, the fear the father had, that fear he was absorbing. That's what made him what he was in his teenage years. So when they got married, Buddha was still that same person, very curious about these questions. And he happened to take these 2, 3 trips outside the palace, where he saw a sick man, an old person, for the first time. When he saw that for the first time, the comparison was even more stark, because what he was shown in his childhood and then what was outside was so different. And that was meant to be. That's how he was supposed to want to, leave everything, and that feeling of, just giving up everything and going and finding the truth that came into him. So their marriage was okay. It was not like the most divine, blissful marriage, because Buddha was struggling with these questions. And then he decides to leave one night. It was just too much. Every time he'd want to leave, he would look at his wife and son, and something would stop him. And then one night he decided, I just have to go, because if I live like this, I cannot help them either. And he left. And that's when the book begins. And in the chapter that begins there, what did Yashodhara feel? What did you feel like when Buddha left? And the answer surprised me. It was like most unexpected answer that Lakshmiji gave. It was, yes, she did go through her suffering. 1 or 2 months happened like that. But very soon she came into her own knowing. She was very psychic, like was Buddha. At that time, he was Gautama, became Buddha later. So both Yashodhara and Gautama would talk to each other. Telepathy, like Krishna and Radha would talk to each other. They were in touch. There were letters exchanged. And their relationship started blossoming. That distance created the love, the longing. And there were many letters, many messages exchanged. And they began to get to really know each other as Buddha was discovering himself and sharing with Yashodhara through telepathy. Yashodhara also, she loved Buddha. She also created an environment around the palace, right in the palace, where she created like a hut, and she changed her clothing. And as he's having some of these initial enlightenments that we don't talk about, enlightenment is not like suddenly it just happens one day you're sitting under the Bodhi tree and you're enlightened. Not at all. It's many lifetimes, and even in that lifetime, there are many moments which are aha moments. Aha, like that is happening. One of the aha moments is when Buddha is completely hungry and starving. And suddenly he just realizes this very clearly. He sees that if this body won't be around, how will I even meditate? A big insight comes, and then the middle way starts. This middle way did not start in Jainism. because Mahavir was blessed with such a good body that he could live without food for a month. He could live on sunlight, it seems, you know, and his body just was strong, you know, so that became the path. But that is very rare people like Mahavir who can live without food and water for so long. Buddha had normal body, and so most of us are normal. And really, body doesn't need to do all this asceticism. The middle way is the greatest way that Buddha started. Because in the middle way, there is no room for ego. If you accumulate too much wealth, you can have an ego. If you say, I fasted for 30 days, which many of the Jains do, you can still have an ego. You can say, I fasted for 30 days. But what if you're just middle way? Every now and then you fast for a day, you're very ordinary. An ordinary person cannot have an ego. So the big renunciation is not of food and clothing. That's not the big renunciation. Big renunciation is of the mind, attachments from the mind. Don't attach to wealth. Also, don't attach to asceticism. Don't attach to just, doing fasting all the time. Just be ordinary. So that's the biggest wisdom in Buddhism. I eat when I'm hungry. I sleep when I'm tired. That's what Buddha says to many of his disciples. Why? Because most of us cannot do that. Many people will eat when they are bored. Many people will watch TV when they're tired. We go against the rhythm of the body. We're not mindful, we're not meditating, we're not aware what our body needs. If you're truly getting enlightened, you not only know when you should eat, when you're hungry, you even know what food should go in your body because your body will tell you that. So that's the middle way. So Yashodhara is getting enlightened, and when Buddha gets enlightened, she is enlightened also. So when he comes back, they're in complete union. They're in so much of a union that he doesn't even bother to visit her in person because they're already together. He goes to see his father, who initially did not even want to, who was not sure how to deal with the situation. He tried to get Buddha back many times, but Buddha refused. And one day when he was ready, Buddha knew when he was ready. That's when he went, and within a meeting or two, his father had the first enlightenments. He opened up. Buddha was so vast, his energy field, that many people would just meet him and get enlightened. The lower three chakras would align and open. So Yashodhara talks uh, about Buddha in a very different way. Their love grew in their separation. And she has a message for those couples that they sometimes have to be, the one partner has to be away, that there are invisible realms, soul realms, telepathy, devotion to each other. Nowadays we have phone calls. We can stay completely connected to each other in that way, and we can grow together. And separation doesn't always mean that your love ends. Love continues. So this is a very different story of Yashodhara, how she took the separation. There was an initial period of a month or two, but then her son Rahula kept her busy, and she created in her ordinary life. She was not seen as a queen or anything. There was a king. She was just an ordinary person living. Okay, she was a princess, but she didn't treat herself as princess. She took on the clothing of a sadhvi, how she was living. And ordinary, taking care of the child and meditating, and kind of the middle way. She was already on the middle way. Buddha had to find the middle way first, living like a prince, then living like a beggar, and then finding the middle way. She was already in the middle way, and she just blossomed into enlightenment, just meditation and going deeper and deeper and deeper. From her point of view, it was a happy life. It was exactly as it was meant to unfold. And so that we were able to do, she was able to do this, and we can do this by looking at what we have in our lives. She found joy in little things. Just taking care of Rahul, just sometimes even exchanges with Buddha, just meditating, just simple pleasures of life, small things, listening to the birds, becoming very mindful, very aware. One advantage of being in a palace is that she didn't have to cook so much. There were people helping her. So she had all that time available to meditate. And many people even in PSSM, many of whom are here in this audience, they are blessed to have that time. They can meditate. And you don't have to go to caves and you don't have to do anything extreme. Just do anapanasati breath, meditate, go deeper, and enlightenment can start happening. Right in your ordinary life, married life, you can, that is what Lakshmi ji says, the message of that life is, in your ordinary life, you can get enlightened. And that's what happened to her. So we'll stop it here. I went over by 10 minutes and we can take questions. Okay. I guess we did not get time to meditate. Maybe we'll close our eyes for a few minutes before we take questions. So just close your eyes. You heard a lot of information. Take a few deep breaths. Balance your body. Become aware of this lawnmower music, which is coming as Om to you, how melodious it is. And keep watching your breath. And become aware of small joys in your life. You get up in the morning, there's a feeling of freshness because you've slept well. The joy of that. If you're lucky, you can go for a walk in the morning. You can feel some fresh air. Everything is awakening. The joy of that. If you walk with some deep awareness, sometimes looking deeply at things that you pass by every day, just the presence of things around you, just the joy of that. Coming home, if you have a beverage, many of you might have some beverage, let's say hot tea, just delight of that. If you have a morning routine of meditation, sadhana, some time where you don't have to worry about the world, the joy of that. Then throughout the day, to be present, to be more present at any given moment, focusing on the here and now. If you're having breakfast, do you really enjoy the breakfast? And something unexpected happens, and going, aha, being curious. The lawnmower here, the sound coming into your ears, aha, curious about everything, judging nothing. The less you judge, the more curious you are, the more aware you are throughout the day, the joy of that. The things that you take for granted, the ability to so quickly shower, brush your teeth, do all of those things in such comforts. Hot water is there for many of you. We take so much for granted. Feel joy of all of that. 99.999% of humans that have come on earth have not enjoyed any of this. So easy. Electricity only came 100 years ago, maybe a little more. So you're living in such incredible comfort, whatever your situation is, still so much more comfortable than even 100 years ago, 200 years ago. And then family time. Can we be present, fully present to the conversations? Can we have less of the meanness and more of full presence to our family members? And feeling the joy of that. The more you increase your meditation and breathing, less becomes these attachments, and you're able to be present. Small things are happening. Feeling the joy, every small thing. And truly feeling the love with friends and family. And feeling gratitude. For most of life forms, animals, it's a daily trek to find food. And it is so nice to have hot food and find work, Just ordinary life is joyful. If you can let the ambition go and focus more on here and now. As you empty your mind more, you might become aware of some things you want to do which you never do. Learning some new skill, a music instrument, going on some sort of adventure, vacation. For all of that to happen, you need a curious mind, an empty mind. So adding curiosity to your life, adding presence to your life, these are the inner joys. And these inner joys keep you healthy. The joys of the body needs to exercise, giving body the attention and not going too focused in your work. Giving the soul the attention. So important to meditate every day, to do some breathing, because body and soul are the ones that open up the doors for you to have a curious mind, an open mind. They're filled with inner joys, thousands of seeds of joy in your mind and in your body and your soul. The mind just has to be awake to these realms of consciousness, which is your presence, your body, your soul. This day spent on earth could be heaven. If you tune deeply into the silence that comes in your heart with meditation. Keep breathing. Become aware of the room you're in. Become aware of your body. Feel the joy of your body sitting here. As soon as you say joy to anything, it becomes joyful. Joy is a choice, not an outcome. Choosing with joy, move your fingers and toes. And when you're ready, slowly, very slowly, put your hands on your eyes. And in your own sweet time, slowly, you can open your eyes.
That was a nice short meditation, sir. Thank you so much. Can we take the question, sir?
Yeah, we have a little, yeah. I hope it's not too late for all of you, but I went on a little bit more. Yeah. Let's take questions, yeah.
This is a big question, but I think it will be helpful for a lot of people. Even though we know that we plan everything before we are born, but still sometimes we find it hard to go through certain situations in our life as they're very painful and suffering is involved. Sometimes it feels like, how cruel am I to plan something like this in my life? It feels like true realization from within is the only medicine to heal those wounds. But unfortunately, it doesn't come just like that. So, how should we find inner strength in such cases as these? Please, can you share your guidance? Thank you.
Yes. Very good question. Many are going through these journeys. I went through this journey too myself when I was 17, 18. Why would I choose this kind of pain, this kind of suffering? And you have to just go deep into that wisdom that deeper the mud, bigger the lotus. It is true that your soul chose to go so deep into suffering, so deep, it tears the heart, so deep into suffering. Because the soul really, really, really wants to know what it is not. So that someday when it goes into universes where there is suffering that is so immense, it can have a first-hand experience of having been through that. And then it can really help because it knows what it is. So these are some profound lives that you are living which have this suffering, like Jesus did, like many people did. So if you could feel the immensity of where you're coming from, the depth, the great beauty that you're coming from, and then there's a purpose of falling so that that is expanding, then using your body, your heart, your soul, you can rise up. If you don't have any body practice like breathing or something, start doing it. You'd be surprised how much it'll start dissolving the pain. Even things like dancing to some music or nice walk, something with the body. And then, of course, anapanasati breath. That can be beautiful. If you can do some yoga, anything with the body. And then truly think about soul feelings. Can you add one of them? Can you add forgiveness? Can you see somebody? Can you add empathy, like somebody who's causing this suffering to you? Can you go deep in their childhood to see what they might have suffered? Empathy, can you add compassion? Just add soul feelings. And then small joys. Even though suffering is big, there's small joys available because they'll grow, they'll start multiplying. So start using body, soul, and then devotion. Sometimes nothing works, find an altar or divine being and just do mantras and chants, because you're not able to let it be for the divine being to help you. If you do these 2, 3 things, it will start melting. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. That was very beautiful. Can we take one more question, sir? Is it okay for you?
You can 1 or 2, yeah.
Okay. People say a lot about unconditional love, but how to implement it?
Another very deep question, because unless you are using a little bit of your body and soul to realize where you are, you won't know. Suppose I go to a very logical person and we start talking about it, and that person does not meditate at all, and they've just gone to in their mind. And we're talking about conditional love and unconditional love. Logical will always find a reason. He'll say everything that I'm doing is also conditional, because you can always connect anything to anything. So you won't get it. If you're only using your logical mind to ask this question, you won't get it. But I don't think the person who's asked this question, they're asking it only from the logical mind. I think their heart wants to know. Yeah. So if the heart wants to know, then you have to discover it. You have to discover unconditional love by engaging with the invisible, engaging with breath, engaging with your body, and, surrendering to whatever you can. Can you surrender to forgiveness? Can you sometimes surrender to compassion? Can you surrender to something called, you know, in Buddhism, there's a concept of joy for another. So we always feel happy when we are successful. Somebody else is successful, and this somebody is not your son or daughter, somebody else's son or daughter. Just tell yourself, okay, what it is to feel the happiness their mother is feeling. Let me feel that happiness. This is the joy for another. So train your mind a little bit to meditate more, to surrender more to soul feelings, to use your body more, same answer in a way, and start feeling like what it is to love without getting anything back in return. Is that itself a happy state? Nothing in return, but just the act of loving. Like you love your dog or your cat. I mean, you do get something in return, but not really. You don't get something in return like to your ego. It's just touch, right? You just unconditionally love animals. What would it be to love other people like this? So it's visualization, experimentation with meditation. It is invoking soul feelings. It's doing all of this slowly, slowly as you spend more time in getting to know within what you are and not being driven by external benchmarks, what success means and what money means, getting away from that, going inward. That's where you'll discover unconditional love. It'll start happening.
Thank you, sir. One last question. How to balance physical life and spiritual life? How to balance physical life and spiritual life?
That is what we are doing in this Kali Yuga. We are become the rainbow body of light. No, that's a joke. That won't be so easy. That'll take maybe, can be easy, but live like the great saints, right? So of course, that's the ultimate dream, to be like Mahavatar Babaji, and you're just in the physical, in the light, everything is, mixed up and it's heaven, right? From that perspective. But to get to that, basically enlightenment means enlightening your physical world, getting into the physicality. We were already enlightened in the heavens. Soul did not need enlightenment there, it was already enlightened. How to get this physical realm full of light? So the whole spirituality is about that, how to join the physical and the spiritual. Spiritual is the light of love, of joy, of compassion, bringing that into all areas of your physicality, of your health through your body, through body processes, yoga, breathing, to your financial, career, job situation, by adding some little discipline, little integrity, little discipline, a lot of integrity, um, all integrity. I mean, liking what you do, your job, and take everything as spiritual. Even when I go to work, it's spiritual. So what can I enjoy here? What do I want to change here? So that is also spiritual. That is the physical, you know. So that, and then your relationships, how to be more mindful. Then you're adding light. How to listen more. How to not always want to boss around and having it only your way, but at the same time having boundaries. When somebody is always, not respecting you, then having boundaries. How to learn that discrimination. Now it's my boundaries, and now it's unconditional presence. So that skill will increase. It all goes together. When you're opening the knot, one thread comes out, it helps the other thread or helps the third thread. Only one cannot, if you just only focus on relationship, I'll make it better, better, better. But you're not doing any breathing, any meditation, any devotion, none of that. And you just completely focus on your relationship. I will make it better, I will make it better, I will change him, I'll do this. And you're not changing yourself, it won't happen. Then you're not adding enough light. So the light has to begin with a surrender to your body and soul. Your mind has to become more aware from here. Even though problems are in the other, you have to come to forgiveness, love, boundaries, all of that wisdom. And light is coming in. Just doing that, that is adding light. That is a light. You're adding spirituality to your physicality.
Wow, so that was amazing. I think it answered many questions, because a lot of people, they ask about their career or relationships, and when someone tells them to meditate, they think that, why, if I'm talking about my problems in my job or in my relationships, and why are these people asking me to meditate? But you clearly explained that the light will help them to clear every area of their life. So that is beautifully explained. So I think this answers all the questions. And wonderful, sir. Thank you so much for your wisdom. And thank you so much for accepting our invitation and sharing your wisdom with all of us. So many things we have learned in these 3 days, sir, and also knowing all those real stories behind. And it has been wonderful listening to you. And also, there are so many messages in the chat window saying it was wonderful. Thank you so much for your wisdom. So many people have been telling it was wonderful. And also, the discussions with Lakshmi Mahal are amazing. And thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your time with us. Thanks a lot from PMC UK and Divine Feminine Sangha. Thank you so much, sir. We look forward to having you again, sometime again in the future. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
So happy to be with all of you, and I've spent 3 days with PMC UK and all the viewers, and it's a wonderful, and you're welcome to explore Devi Circle, and we have a workshop, Devi Mind, starting tomorrow, that you can find on Devi Circle. It's about mindfulness. A wonderful teacher, Shalini Behel, who's doing this. She's got great certifications also from MBSR, from Google, and she's has TEDx talks also. So and she's connected with Saraswati. All our teachers have to be connected, and so she'll channel some messages and some songs, and so that starts tomorrow, and that'll be 9 to 11 p.m. in India. You can find that, and there are other workshops in Devi Circle. And so really happy to have done this, and hopefully we'll be connecting more. Yes.
Yes, sir, definitely. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, all my dear friends. Thank you so much, Anandji. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, my dear friends, we have Dashamahavidyalu and DNA activation by DNS Swarnalata ma'am next. So continue watching on